We're back with Shana Spence. I'm so excited about this conversation because I think we're just getting started into really the heart of the conversation, which is like having joy with every bite. I think that might be the title for the episode. I think that that's really possible. And so I want to hear a little bit more about, we have such an eating disordered world. And I don't mean that everyone has an eating disorder. I want to be clear, but I mean that we have an unhealthy, as a culture, an unhealthy relationship with food. Like, there's so many depictions. You think about that like stereotype of when a woman gets dumped, she's eating, Ben and Jerry's, and she's drinking a bunch of alcohol, and she's like eating every bad food known to man. And I'm saying bad, I'm now labeling. I'm even doing the thing, right? I'm labeling food, but never so you would not eat all day long, right? You cannot live off of Ben and Jerry's, right? That kind of understanding and relationship with food, that like food is a feeling instead of a thing, right? And if it's there's certain foods we think of for bad feelings, there's certain foods that we think of for good, and some of those are not healthy either. Like this feeling that in order to be happy, I must have whatever. And so how do you combat that as a nutritionist? How do we combat those messages that tell us what's good food, what's bad food, how to emotionally react to things? How do you combat that?
Yeah, I think so. Disordered eating, I think, just runs rampant in society. I think that, quite honestly, everyone can be affected because we're in society where there's so many, again, rules and regulations, and people are scared of the word like hyperpalatable, where if something tastes really delicious, it can't be good for me. I can't eat it. And then the thing is that we're human. So of course, once in a while, we're going to want ice cream, right? But then that guilty feeling comes along. So it's like this cycle. And so my goal is just to get folks to realize that every food has a place. So, and I want to be clear that I'm not saying that you have to eat a pint of Ben and Jerry's. Like I have Ben and Jerry's actually in my freezer right now, but I'm not saying to eat that continually throughout the day, because like you said, we can't live off of that. However, it doesn't make us bad people to eat that sometimes or to even crave it, right? Because again, we're human. And I tell people we have taste buds for a reason. And so I think what happens is that from childhood, because I also work with preschoolers who are like 3, 4, 5 years old, which is very adorable, but they're already getting messages about bad food. So I remember walking into a teacher's classroom once, and she was so excited, right? Because I'm a dietitian. So she wanted to show me this poster, and she made bad foods and good foods. And she was like, see, they're already learning. And I was like, okay, but maybe we could change a few things with the wording. So they're already, and when you think about the first time you heard the word diet or the first time you heard about bad foods, you were probably that age too. And so it's kind of this mentality that's been with us for a while. So it's going to be hard to break that. And I just want to say it's not going to happen overnight. It takes gradual steps in order to build that healthy relationship. But I tell people really try to question things, really realize that every food has its place. Yes, vegetables can also taste delicious, but vegetables aren't going to be the same thing as ice cream on a hot day, on a summer day when you're just in a really good mood and you want an ice cream cone. Like a stalk of broccoli is not going to do that. Like it's not going to be the same thing, because those are two different foods, but that's also okay. Realizing that that's okay. And, so I think that we have to realize that. And, like you mentioned before, we do also have to maybe look at our coping mechanisms, because sometimes food is used, as a clutch and as comfort, which doesn't, again, it's so complicated, right? Because it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but maybe we can relook at how to cope with our feelings other than food. So it's very, food can't be generalized. It's very nuanced, but I think that we need to start having these conversations and realizing, hey, eating ice cream is not bad, So, and like I said, I definitely have Ben and Jerry's in my freezer.
Ben and Jerry's, sponsored Black Girl Burnout. Like, we're not against you. Are you kidding me? Yeah, really. We're not saying it's a bad thing. And I think that's really powerful, that eating is nuanced, and I think we try to oversimplify it. And that kind of brings me to, you talk a lot about intuitive eating, which is just basically like, it's sad that we had to come up with a phrase called your body
Which is eating. Yes.
Just eat. Like, your body will tell you, like, when your cycle's coming on, yeah, it's totally fine to crave a little bit of chocolate. Like, your body is going to tell you when to, like, grab the ice cream and when to be like, yeah, I'm good. I'll go have a salad. And so tell me a little bit more about intuitive eating with that lead up, and how you integrate that, and how we should be approaching life a little more intuitive when it comes to food.
Yeah, it's so funny because it was actually another dietitian who said this, and I laughed so hard. She said intuitive eating would just be called eating without like the disordered concepts in society. Because when you think about it, intuitive eating really is just listening to your gut, listening to that intuition about what your body needs. And I'm going to bring up my preschoolers again, because I think that when we're small, we actually have that intuition, and it's all these outside forces that kind of stop that intuition. For example, children will usually take what they want, right? As far as serving themselves. And us adults, we get very scared. Oh, they're not eating enough, or that's too much, or don't finish that, eat your vegetables before you eat that piece of chicken, like things like that, because we're trying to help, like, let's be real, right? But the thing is that they actually are honoring their intuition, because even when I'm serving something to the children, like a fruit bowl or something, and they took too much, they don't finish it. They're kind of like, okay, I still loved it, but I'm done. But as a parent, maybe you see that, they didn't finish their, I don't know, strawberries or something like that. And you're like, okay, but can you please just finish what's on your plate? And then I don't know about anybody else, but I grew up with a parent who was saying, there's starving children in the world. Like, let's, finish what's on our plate. And yes, that's true. But I always tell people, me finishing something on the plate isn't going to help the starving children in the world. Like, I know that sounds, kind of bad, but it's true, And so that's what I mean when I say outside forces. And it can also be the opposite, right? Being told not to eat X, Y, and Z, or, things like that. So intuitive eating, that's really what it is. It's about honoring that intuition. Eating joyfully, yes, that includes salads, that includes vegetables and fruits, but also realizing, oh, you know what? I feel full. I'm good. Or, saying, you know what? I don't really like spinach. So I'm going to choose a different vegetable, instead of the spinach. And that's also okay. Things like that. And that's really kind of the intuition that we've lost since we were small, believe it or not.
Yes. And even along gender lines, like, I think, social construct of gender and women, like, so much of denial of intuition is like what you're unlearning as a woman. 100%. It's like, just deny. And then, of course, like, in some ways just overdo, right? That we tell women that the only time you could have food that's bad for you is with bad feelings happening, right? Or a celebration is the only time to ever have cake. And so it becomes this lifelong journey outside of food. Like, I really do think there's a concept, just like when I tell people who discover joy in their lives, you have a little bit less disordered eating. And of course, that's different from like having an eating disorder. I want to like put that to the side here and not dishonor that experience, and that needs a whole different course of treatment. But when you've been fed these messages and you just say, you know what, I'm just going to take care of my life and make my life better, you find yourself automatically defaulting to like, I like how I feel when I eat X, like a salad. Like, I actually do like vegetables. Now, they may need to be cooked a certain way, or they may need to be done the same way for me to like it. Hey, I'm not just eating broccoli out of like a baggie. Like, that's not my bag for me, but I do like it, and I like how I feel, and I want to feel more of that. Like, I don't like how I feel if I'm hungover, or I don't like how I feel when I've eaten an entire cake, because that's just too much. And I do think you're right about one thing our listeners can think about is think about how they ate as kids. I mean, for some of us, it's like you did like, of course you like chocolate as a kid, or you like, God, I like gummy bears or whatever. But I did know when I was full, and I never occurred to me to like eat 5 more gummy bears because, well, what if it's gone? It only occurred to me later in life that I felt the need to eat beyond the point of fullness, either for clearing my plate from my parents or more likely on my own being like, well, it's a bad food, so I won't be able to have it again. So I need to have like 10 more gummy bears and then put it away and shame myself and not look at them again.
Exactly. And that's actually called like the Last Supper mentality, when we're trying to finish the gummy bears or the whole pint of ice cream because we're saying, you know what, I'm going to be good tomorrow, so I'm just going to finish this now and put it away. And that's what we call the Last Supper mentality, which is just that feeling of, okay, I can't have this again, so I'm going to enjoy it in its entirety. You know, even though you know in the back of your head or back of your mind, sorry, that, you know what, I'm probably going to have a stomach ache after eating a whole pint of ice cream. So, but I'm going to do it anyway. We ignore that feeling because we just, you know what, there's guilt already seeping in. So yeah. It's really kind of, there's so much psychology when it comes to food, when it comes to eating and nutrition. And it's just really amazing because there's so much thought behind it and why we make the choices we do. So,
and so much of it has little to do with our body. Like it has, like you said, it's all in the mind. Like it has little to do once you start being able to hear the messages. And so it's like, if food is a really difficult place for you to start, think about the messages you're telling yourself about yourself, period. Because I guarantee you, once you start listening to yourself in other places of your life, you'll then give your stomach permission to say what it needs to say and say, you know, I'm hungry. Go eat that. You know, or I'm full. Stop it. I can get this later or another time. Like I do think it's really powerful what you're saying about it's all mental work. It's a lot of psychology.
So much of it is. So that's actually another reason why a lot of times when someone's seeking out a dietitian, they'll also seek out therapy as well, because there's a lot of sometimes childhood trauma, things like that come to surface. So it's important to have both. You know, depending on the person, but yeah,
it doesn't hurt. I mean, I definitely feel like as a therapist, I'm like, I'm never going to say the worst therapist, and you're never going to say a dietitian can't help you. But I think that they do go hand in hand really well. I'm going to stop us here, but when we come back, I really want to talk a little bit more about joy and traditions of Blackness. I think there's also a specific thing in our community about food and joy and some of the traditions we have, and how we can keep that joy going through those traditions. People are going to celebrate holidays, etc., family gatherings. And then I want to know a little bit more about what brings you joy, Shana. So as we close out, so more to come with Shana as we unpack a little bit about the Black tradition in food. How do we keep joy there, as well as what brings you joy on an individual level?
Sounds good.